Hi, this is Adam, otherwise known as Eschaton, from the PC Part Picker forums. And today I'm going to be putting together a mid-range gaming build for one of my customers. You've got all the components we need for this computer in front of us, as well as the tools. So let's take a look at it. Just a quick summary first of the parts. We've got an AMD FX 6350 6-core processor, CPU. Nice cooling fan, probably going to be used for the exhaust. We have a Sapphire Tri-X R9 290 graphics card with 4 GB of virtual memory. We have a nice PNY SSD, SATA 6, 240 GB, and it's one of the more popular SSDs on PC Part Picker due to its price to gigabytes, price to performance cost ratio. I butchered that, but you know what I mean. We've got a nice Microsoft Windows 8.1 OEM license. Your standard run-of-the-mill DVD-RW drive. A 1 terabyte Seagate 7200 RPM hard drive. Also SATA 6. We have 2 sticks of memory by Crucial, their Ballistics brand, and it is 2 sticks of 4 GB each and running at 1600 megahertz. Above, we have an EVGA 600B power supply. It's a bronze power supply and is fairly run-of-the-mill. It's going to get the job done here. I really like EVGA because of the quality of their builds, and they're nice and easy to redeem warranties should you need to make use of those. Cooler Master has put together a wonderful CPU cooler in the Hyper 2112 Evo. It's got a great cost to performance ratio and is possibly the single most popular part on PC Part Picker, so I'm really glad to be putting it into the build today because I know a lot of people stand by this cooler as their standard go-to for keeping their CPUs cool and maybe even doing a little bit of overclocking. We've got the Asus M5A99X Evo R2 motherboard. It's a nice motherboard with plenty of connections and should be doing quite nicely for us if we should ever choose to overclock the CPU or add perhaps another video card. Here we have the other deep cool fan that the customer wanted. This is a nicer fan with PWM, and it's probably going to end up being used in the intake function. So that's going to be nice to include in the front of this case, which is a deep cool case, ATX mid-tower form factor. It has a handsome blue bezel on the front. I'm not sure if you can make it out in this light, but certainly you're probably going to see that later on in the video. And then we have some fuel for the assembler. Now, I like to talk a little bit about the tools that I use when I'm putting together a PC. This is my go-to kit. It's a little larger than a lot of people's. The most important thing is the Phillips screwdriver. A nice small one like this works well. I also have a longer flathead screwdriver because it's nice to have for those rare times when you have to have a flathead on hand. And it also makes an excellent pin jumper, which you'll see later in this video. I also bring with me, when possible, 2 stubby screwdrivers, flathead and Phillips. It's really nice to be able to work in tight spaces with these. Finally, we have a light. This is not really designed for this, but it's a very bright light, good for seeing in cases. We have a USB stick with a number of Linux ISOs on it, great for debugging. And finally, a Leatherman multi-tool, which comes in handy just for opening packages and getting some of the extra torque work done at times. Alright. The first step in any good build, you have to fuel up the assembler. Okay. So, first things first. I like to lay out the case just to get a feel for the kind of space that I'm going to be working in. I'll set this over here. Oh. Let's see if that'll work. All right. This deep cool case is made of thin metal. It's a lightweight case, and you shouldn't subject it to rough treatment, but it's definitely going to get you there for the price that was paid for it. So, very nice value case in my opinion. It's got plenty of options for ventilation. And as you'll see, it even has a decent area for routing cables in the back. Oh, what did they give us? Looks like components. That's good. Bring that up. So, there's some glare, but you'll see they give us some zip ties, they give us a little bit of a manual, speakers, plenty of black oxide screws. Great. A bunch of front panel connectors and the power heading. We've got what looks like a PWM and Molex connector wire for an 120mm fan that's right in there. I don't know if you can make that out in this video, but there is one. And some removable drive cages. At least I think they're removable. We're going to be attempting to remove them, or perhaps it would be easier, I think, to take off the front panel later and put in that other intake fan. Now, the one thing that is going to be difficult here is that it did come with the kinds of expansion slots that you'll have to wiggle free from the metal that they're kind of weakly connected to, and so we want to be careful when we're doing that not to really distort this back, but if we do it gently and patiently, there shouldn't be any trouble with that. We've got a nice big area for working with the back of the CPU if we want to try to mount the CPU cooler after mounting the motherboard, which could be a good idea in this case, considering that the CPU cooler is quite large and could be difficult to mount otherwise. Got the back fan that they included. I might want to move that. In fact, I might end up moving both of these fans up to the top. We'll see. It looks like there is a filter of sorts. You would pinch it to remove it. And the same thing goes for the bottom, where we can put a downward facing PSU. So there's a bit of a filter on the underside which we can pinch and remove. Alright, I am going to just pause the video here for a second. Okay, I'm going to show you how to remove the front panel on a box like this, just because it can be a little difficult, and it's difficult to figure out. But if you look, there are these little bumps or protrusions coming out. You see if I can find the next one. Yeah, there's another one. Little protrusion right there. I'm going to remove this so you can see a little better. Nice little protrusion coming through the metal. It's a plastic protrusion, and if we pinch it, we'll be able to pop it through the metal that's holding it in place and get this thing out of there. Sometimes it can be difficult to do. I might end up using my pliers simply because they're a little thinner than my fat fingers. Let's see. There's the other one. Yeah. And there will be others on the other side as well. We'll want to be removing the back side of this case to get at those. But we'll do one side at a time. All right. Let's get that light clipped in place. Okay, let's see if it'll stay up. Not so much. All right. How about if we clip it right here? All right, is it gonna work? It's gonna work. You wanna get in there, pinch these guys gently, and push. And you'll see it's popping. There's a little bit of a gap there, so we've made it. We'll move on to the next one. Alright. Like I said, you could do this with your fingers. My fingers are too fat and too clumsy. Alright. And the other one came free. Okay. Okay, so you see I've removed the front panel just by popping out those little plastic pins, and all of the front panel cabling right here is connected. It's actually, some of it is plugged, some of it might be soldered in there, but we want to be gentle with that, okay? We don't want to be yanking that around. So we'll just kind of carefully pick that up, put it over here on the wall for now. It's not necessary until we finish the build, all right? So now I've got access. I've already removed the back fan. We've got the front fan right here. Now, I should pause here and quickly talk about why I'm doing this. I realize, why am I taking the original stock fans, moving them out of their position, putting them up on the top, and replacing them with these two other fans? Why would I do that? Well, it has a lot to do with the cooling options that are available on this case, and the nature of each of the fans involved. So this nice fan here, this GS120, looking it up online, it's got the best specs in terms of CFMs, in terms of cubic feet per minute that it moves. So we want to put that up at the front, I'm thinking, because this R9 290 is going to be a massive card, and under a lot of stress might put out a lot of heat. So I'm going to be wanting quite a bit of airflow to be coming in, sucked through the front of this case, and hopefully making it back into the space where the PSU and the GPU will be operating. And then hopefully, as it gets hot and rises, okay, we'll have three fans up here, kind of helping to vent that out the back of the case, okay? Now, in my experience, it's harder to get air into a case than it is to get air out of a case. So we really want that nice, powerful fan up at the front. Someone can probably prove me wrong on that, though. It's just it's kind of my anecdotal experience, and it works for me when I'm building my own computers, so I'm gonna redo it here. If someone's got a better explanation for why that seems to work, I would very much love to hear it. Okay, gonna pause again while I remove this, but basically we've got 4 Phillips screws in every fan, and we'll just torque those out and reapply the fan where we think is best. Hey, so we're back. We've got both of the deep cool case fans installed at the top. We have the black exhaust fan chosen by my customer installed in the exhaust position. And in the front, we have the intake fan installed. Now, moving from there, I'm going to take us over to the motherboard. I like to get everything assembled onto the motherboard as much as possible before installing it into the case, bar the graphics card, and also, I believe in this case, the CPU cooler. But it's going to be pretty easy. I'm going to start with the CPU. Okay. Alright, so there we've got the CPU. Go ahead and open this one-handed if possible. Now, of course, AMD uses the pin grid array, so we'll want to be very careful when handling this CPU. Not to touch the bottom with all of these pins on it. You can see, though, that we've got some spots that are kind of irregular where they did not choose to put the pins, and we'll be able to line that up. You can see, perhaps, if I angle it correctly, that there are similar spots where there are no sockets for those pins on the CPU socket. So I'm going to go ahead and lift up the lever. This opens up the sockets, and I'm going to double check here that I'm getting it right. But I believe we will want the CPU to drop in just like so. If you do it right, it really should just drop right in without any resistance. We want to avoid touching the top of it with our fingers, just because we don't want to get any kind of human oil on the top that might interfere with the cooling at a later date. So we're just going to lever it down carefully. And now it's locked in place. Great. Moving on. I think the next step would be to install the RAM. Let's pop this bad boy open. Again, one-handed, so bear with me here. Nice little heat spreaders on the side of it. Looks very handsome. Now, I believe in this motherboard, they're going to want us to be putting a RAM in slot 1 and slot 2. So, go ahead and get... Oh, look at that. That side does not move on this motherboard. Only the top. So we'll just depress the two latches there. Make sure that we line up the notch on the RAM with the notch on the motherboard connector. And we'll just, we'll do it right. Slide it in here. Okay, line it up. Drop it in. Sometimes takes a little bit of force. But in it goes. You'll know it's securely attached when the latch is firmly in the notch on the edge of the RAM stick. Great. So there's one. And you know what? At this time, just because we want to make sure that we're doing it right and we are going extremely by the book, we're not going to put the second stick in because we only need stick in slot 1 to boot. Okay? If it boots, then maybe we can go and install this second stick. Okay? But just in terms of doing diagnostics, we want to do one at a time because that'll help us down the road if there's any irregularities. Okay, here is the back panel. I am going to quickly pop that in, probably off camera, but basically it's friction retention. You've got these little bending metal flanges around the edge here. Make sure that you get it in the right orientation for your motherboard, for the I/O panel on the back, and then just pop it in. Sometimes these things will cut you, so I suggest doing it with gloves or just kind of popping it in with the head of the screwdriver that you have on hand, or the butt of the screwdriver. Works well for me. Anyway, so we've got the CPU in, we've got the RAMs, the first of the 2 RAM sticks into this motherboard. Is there anything else to do? Nope, it's shipped with the CMOS battery already installed. Okay. And we don't want to put the GPU in just yet because that would make it difficult to install. And again, same thing with the CPU cooler. I don't think I'm going to put the CPU cooler in because it would be a more difficult install if we did that at this point. One other quick note here. Of course, the CPU does come with its own stock cooler, okay, with some thermal paste pre-applied. We're going to not use this, obviously, because we have the Cooler Master 2112 Evo on hand. Much better. But, yes, every CPU ever ships with its own stock cooler, except in the cases specifically where they say that they do not. Oftentimes those are labeled OEM, Original Equipment Manufacturer. They've been pulled or something like that, and thus they do not ship with their own CPU cooler, their stock CPU cooler. Okay, so we've got everything in place on the board. Actually, I think the next step for me is going to be to put the power supply into the case, all right? I just want to get that in there beforehand, make sure that all of my connections are ready to go. Then the next step is simply going to be to attach the CPU cooler, connect the motherboard to the power supply with the relevant connectors, all inside of the case, and then try to fire this thing up, okay, just to see that it's working, okay? So, okay, we've got the power supply installed. I took the liberty of routing all of the cables through the back, all right, because we've got this nice cable management space that's been provided to us by Deepcool. So even though it is a non-modular power supply, hopefully we can get some cable management going here with this nice squid of cables. I also just kind of popped in the back panel, okay, just used a little bit of pressure. This one was nice because ASUS was so kind as to provide kind of a padding on it so that I wasn't in as much danger of cutting the crap out of myself. So, all right, everything's in there. The next step is going to be to insert the motherboard into this area. Now, you want to check first, where are your standoffs, okay? In this case, came with standoffs pre-installed, all right? They're black oxide, so you cannot make them out very well against the background of the case, but there's one right there. There's some up there. We've got all of the standoffs we need for an ATX motherboard installation. So we're good to go, okay? And that's great. I'm really happy that Deepcool did that. Obviously, if they didn't, you would expect to find the standoffs in the motherboard case or in the case package that came inside of it. But in this case, they chose to install them prior. Some cases, especially some cheaper cases, come with standoffs that are integrated into the metal, the back plate of the case. That's generally inferior, but you know what? It works. It works. In this case, they chose to use real standoffs, so that's nice. We're going to go ahead and we're going to lift this motherboard out. Just want to be real careful not to accidentally pry any of these capacitors off, damage the heat sinks that are on the MOSFETs and the MOSFETs and the bridge. But we also want to be aware that on the back there's lots of little pins, okay? We don't want to damage those. Nothing really bad would probably come of it, but better to be safe than sorry. So we're just going to be really gentle. Put that on the carpet over here for a sec. Prefer not to do that on a hard surface, which is why I installed everything inside of that box. Cardboard box is a lot more forgiving. Get the cables out of the way. Alright. And then I'm going to lower this bad boy in. Just make sure the dust is not there. Okay. It's in. And without allowing it to scrape along the back, we just want to make sure that we get it in there. Get all of the back pins up against the I/O panel. Everything is looking good over there. Although it's too dark for you to see, I think. Now, good. It's in place. All of the holes on the motherboard should be lined up with a standoff on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this in and get back to you after that is done. Okay, so you can see here we have the motherboard installed. Try to get more light in there. We've screwed in all of the screws that will keep the motherboard attached to the case. The next step is going to be to install the Hyper 2112 Evo. This is a rather tall cooler, especially once you take into account the tops of the heat pipes, which jut out quite a bit. Wish they hadn't done that, but you know, it's a great cooler, so we're not going to complain too much. If we kind of set that in there, we can see that actually the heat pipes do come out just a hair above the level of the case. Is that going to screw us over? No, it's not. In this case, Deep Cool did actually give us a little bit more headroom with their side panel. They kind of embossed it a little bit, and that's going to give us the crucial few millimeters to fit this sucker in there. Now, I've thought about how exactly I want to mount this thing, and I believe that I'm going to start out attempting to mount it in a configuration that I haven't tried before, facing down, okay? So we've got the fan in a pull position. That's how it came in the case, and we're going to keep it like that. And the idea is that we've got the fan that's providing intake, pushing air, and then all of these fans up here helping to lift that air out of the case. The one downside to this that I'm worried about is that it is possible this fan will end up pulling air that's already been preheated by the GPU in through its heat sink, and that would not be good. We want generally cool air to be coming into the CPU. So is that a good idea? I don't know. We'll find out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking the back plate. That's going to be going underneath the motherboard. On the other side, I'm going to be tipping this thing up. Obviously, this has to come out. That's going to be held against the back of the motherboard while we take the mounting apparatus for the configurable mounting apparatus for the cooler. The Hyper 2112 Evo can fit a rather wide variety of sockets, which is one of the really great things about it. And this is the reason why they've got a kind of a nifty cooler that can fit a bunch of different screw configurations. So we're going to configure it properly for the AMD socket here, socket AM3 Plus, and then we're going to torque that sucker down. Probably what I'm going to want to do is get it started sideways and then let it set on its side for the final torquing. You really want to torque this thing down. Oh, and I forgot, of course, the Hyper 2112 Evo doesn't come with any thermal paste pre-applied. It's just got this sticker, which is wisely covering the heat pipe surface. One of the great things, and probably the secret to the Hyper 2112 Evo's success, is the fact that the heat pipes, the way they designed this cooler, it's got 4 heat pipes. Each heat pipe is actually touching the other heat pipe, and they all are directly interfacing with the surface of the CPU. That's just a great recipe for heat transfer in my book. So it just will be taking that heat right up these copper tubes into the aluminum fins, where the air blowing over them should really help dissipate that buildup of heat. Cooler Master, great job. I wish more products were available to us with this kind of contiguous heat pipe configuration, which is directly interfacing with the CPU. But, you know, there just aren't that many. So we love this. It's nicely priced. Anyway, I'm going to stop being so enthused about that and actually get to work here. So I will be back when that is done. Oh, one other thing. we got to apply the Cooler Master TIM that they supplied. We want to put just a tiny dot, and I'm not going to touch the CPU here, but we want to put like a tiny dot right in the center, kind of like a rice dot, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just set you over here. Apply just a tiny little bit right in the center. Right there, okay? See that? Not a lot, not a lot. When we really torque this thing down, that is going to spread out over the entire surface of the CPU, and it's going to do just fine, okay? So I'm going to set you aside here while I screw that back on so that we don't dry up the thermal paste in case we want to later remount it again. All right. And I'm also, I believe, I have not mounted the Hyper 2112 Evo on an AMD socket before, but I believe we are going to want to unscrew these black plastic retention bars that were included on the board, because those were designed, I believe, for the standard CPU cooler. The Hyper 2112 Evo, I don't think, is going to be using those. Okay, I've got the CPU cooler mounted in the configuration that I wanted it in, and it's a good thing we decided to install the RAM stick in slot 1 first because, well, let me get a light in here. You can see that the CPU cooler, as large as it is, has substantially occluded the first RAM slot. We're going to be able to get into the second, third, and fourth RAM slots without issue, but that first one, if we had done that second, you know, we'd have to take the CPU cooler all the way off. So, just a little bit of indication in the order in which I decided to do things. Alright, I'll lift it up and show you how it looks on the backside. Properly installed. You've got what's called the CPU backplate, and we've torqued it down using the AMD slot, or the AMD screw holes for AM3+. Alright. I should have mentioned also that there was a back plate that came with it for the stock cooler. This came off as well when I was installing it. So we've installed the Cooler Master Hyper Evo's back plate directly to the surface of the motherboard. Last step here is to take the PWM and power control for the CPU cooler, and we're going to attach it. Let's see, let's get a light in here again. You can see down, let me try to get the light here. Nope, we're getting some glare on it. Okay, those two gray bits right there and there. The one on the left says CPU fan. We want to attach the CPU fan's controller to that interface. I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's just a friction fit. Haha! There we go. Just put a light on it. And you can see now we've got that connected. There is another one next to it called CPU Opt, CPU Optional, in other words. That would be in case we ever want to add another one of these Cooler Master, Blade Master 120mm fans to the back side of the cooler. And in fact, Cooler Master was so kind as to include mounting brackets for that, which I'll be shipping along with this build to my customer. But it comes with mounting brackets. You can add any other 120mm fan to the back of the cooler. Just make sure you've got it going in the same direction as the front fan. Fans, you can usually determine the whether, you know, they're going to be pulling or pushing, depending on the angle of attack of their blades. And I probably should have covered this earlier. Here, there's a higher contrast fan in front. You can see here that, so the fan is going to be biting the air. The leading edge grabs and then pushes the air down with the tilt in the rotor, or in the blade rather. Sorry, the rotor's here. In the blade. So it's grabbing the air with this leading edge and then pushing it down through, or pushing it through as it spins. Okay. So that's how you determine the direction of flow in a fan. A lot of fans these days are nice enough to put like arrows embossed in the plastic on the side. That wasn't the case with these deep cool fans, but it's all right. Easy enough to figure out. So we've got the same thing going on here. This fan is going to be sucking in, pushing up through there, and then taking all of that hot air out the top with those two exhaust fans and another exhaust fan over here, just to help keep things, you know, very, very clear up here. Should be good. The next step, I got to take a little bit more fuel. The next step is, pardon me, we're going to want to, as I said earlier, attach the power supply, attach the fans, and then what I'm going to do is, without attaching the front panel, I'm going to jump. Let me show you down here. I'm going to jump this board. And that is, it looks like here we've got a rather large power heading group. I'm going to find the two pins using the manual that powers on the board and gets it to start posting, and I'm going to jump those with my flathead screwdriver. If they're too far apart, I'm going to jump them using, let's see, where did it go? I will jump start things using the jump starter that was included with the power supply. Okay, so you would simply, well, let's see, how does this work? Well, I'll figure that out when the time comes to it, but that's what this is, as far as I know. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to attach all the fans, going to get all of the power, all of the power supply connectors connected, and then we're going to go ahead and try to post this, okay? So I'll let you know when that's ready to go. Okay, so we've got our setup here. We went ahead and attached the 24-pin connector right there, okay? We went ahead and connected the 8-pin connector for the CPU right there, okay? Then we also went ahead and connected all the fans to the motherboard here, here, and here. Okay, so now we're going to power it on. Before I plug it in, I'd like to stress that one of the things I like to do, just to be sure, is make sure that my power switch on the power supply is in the off position before I turn it on. Before I plug it in, that is. So, let's see here. Get that in there. Set this down. Oop, my bad. There we go. Alright. Nothing is on. We're going to flip this magical switch. Good. We have an LED indicator telling us that power is going to the board. And the next step, as I mentioned earlier, is to try to jump this thing. Normally, you've got the power button on the front bezel, which has been removed. You've got the power button with a cable, 2-pin cable to one of the to a pair of the pins on this front panel connector panel here. And when you press that button, it jumps those two cables. We're going to simulate that using a flathead screwdriver Here we go. And looking at this, let's see if I can get us some nice light. Okay, cool. So I am reading that power is going to be these two pins right here. So I'm going to go ahead and try those. And sure enough, as soon as I touch them together, the system is on. We've got these crazy LED lights going. Everything seems to be running. I'm going to be quiet now. Everything seems to be good. Okay, we don't have a video card in, and the AM3 Plus socket doesn't have any integrated graphics, so we don't know exactly if it's posting or not yet, but everything seems good. In fact, if we want, just turn this off here, okay, we can take, where did it go? We can take this little motherboard speaker, and we can try to find where that goes on the motherboard here. Let's see. Okay. We'll see if anything is gonna beep here. Looks like no. Probably because I don't have the speaker installed correctly. Not going to yank it while it's running. Just going to turn it off. Go ahead and yank that. If I would bother to read the motherboard instructions, I'm sure I could find a place for it, but you know, I'm just not that motivated. I am pretty confident everything is going to post just fine, so I'm going to put that over there. If I had installed that correctly, you would hear beep codes for various things that would be happening during posts, especially if there were errors. So the next step, I'm thinking, is going to be to put in the other stick of RAM. Okay, so finding that. We want to install that RAM, okay? Next step after that is going to be putting in the graphics card, installing that and booting with it. And then the final steps will be all three of the drives, followed by actual installation of the software. Okay, so that'll be nice. That'll be fun. Okay, so what we've done is we've gone and installed the Sapphire Tri-X R9 290 graphics card. As you can see, there were some extremely tight tolerances involved, but it does fit this case. What I had to do was remove the extension or the expansion slot bracket placeholders in order to get the DVI connectors to fit through in order for it to fit over here. So I'm extremely glad that Sapphire decided that they were going to put their supplementary power connectors coming off the side instead of coming off the back. Otherwise, that would have made for an extremely awkward and possibly unworkable fit. I'm also happy that the design of the cooling system seems to indicate they're looking to vent all of the air out of the side of the case, which is going to be just fine considering that we have vents on the side of the case to help us with that. Now, the moment of truth has kind of arrived. We've got it set up. I've got my test screen 1920 by 1200p. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, if I can remember how to do that. There we go. Okay. We have an HDMI connection. Okay. Power is on. RAM is in the second black slot. We'll see if that's right. I did not actually read the instructions. So let's see if it boots. Once again, we're going to jump it. Everything fires up. Do we get a picture? Let's see. Nothing so far. Okay. Maybe there's an issue with the way that I installed the RAM. Let's go ahead and turn it off, because you can see the graphics card itself is running just fine. So let's go ahead and turn the whole system off. Let's unplug the power. And let's move that RAM. Actually, let's take it out, okay? We'll put it in later. So let me just plug in my trusty light. Okay. Take that RAM out, rock it out. It's kind of hidden under some cords here, so we have to be careful. But okay, we've taken that stick of RAM out. We're back to basically our last known good configuration plus the graphics card. Okay, so back to testing. Screen is on. We have a no cable signal. I'm gonna plug this guy in. Let's see. Jumping. Okay. Sounds like there's some. There we go. Let's see. Okay. We are still not getting a signal. Why could that be? Let's think about it. Okay, so it looks like if you actually read the manual, you can see that the recommended memory configurations show, per this drawing right here, you actually want, let me see if I can focus this thing. Nope, no dice, but you'll have to take my word for it. You actually want to be putting the RAM sticks in the second and fourth slot, not the first and third. So ASUS made things a little difficult for me here, but it's no problem. I went ahead and installed the memory in the recommended slots. Let's see how that works out for us. Everything is on. The screen is on. Oh, forgot to flip the power switch. Now we are getting the power indicator on the motherboard. We'll jump things again. Okay. Now let's cross our fingers. Aha! American Megatrends is a thing of beauty. Now it's giving us an error. It says that it can't support the current boot device, which is rich because there is no boot device in the system. So we're going to go ahead and turn this bad boy off. Everything seems to be working as planned. It's time to install the various storage media devices and install the software. So I'm going to get back to you at the point where I have got the SSD in, the DVD-ROM in, and I'm installing Windows 8. What I'm actually going to do is I've decided I'm going to install the terabyte drive after Windows, just to make the installation a little bit easier on myself, and to show you about adding a drive once the operating system is already installed. Okay, so I'm back, having installed the drive, the optical drive. Oop, it's rather dark in here. Let me get a light so you can see. I elected to install the optical drive in the second 5 1/4 inch bay for 2 reasons. The first reason was that I could avoid using the second SATA cable if I did so, because it just reaches with one cable from the second bay down to the first bay of the 2.5 inch storage area. So here's the SSD. It's a 2.5 inch drive. I've got the power. I've got the SATA cable. They're both connected to the white SATA cable connectors on the motherboard that you see just above my finger. They are actually hidden behind the graphics card. There's a third pair of SATA connectors on the motherboard behind that. I just chose to do that because if the user wants later to add another drive, it would be easier for them to install to the ones that are exposed. So just trying to be nice. Quick note, this is such a large graphics card that when you stand the case up on its side, it actually could start sagging over time because of the weight. So what I did was I took one of these zip ties that was intended for the cable management, and instead I elected to tie it through some of the superstructure, some of the plastic superstructure on the Tri-X, tied it to the chassis of the case, tightened it. Should help keep this board supported, help it look a little handsomer, and hopefully not expose that PCIe 16X slot to any kind of undue fatigue. Anyway, that's neither here nor there for what we're doing now. We are going to install Windows 8. Alright. I am going to do something that I recommend you never do, and use a USB keyboard for this initial installation. I prefer PS2 keyboards whenever possible for installation procedures because they're much more trouble-free. But in this case, this was simply what I had available, and this is a fairly modern motherboard, and Asus is a fairly supportive company, so I'm going to take a gamble that it's actually going to work this time. So we still have to jump because we don't have the front panel connected. Just going to go ahead and do that. Oh, right, I forgot. Plug it in is always a good policy. Okay. Now jump it. So away we go. Pop that sucker open, get the disc in there, and let's see where this takes us. Oh, first let's take a quick detour. Let's go into the UEFI BIOS. All right, this is the BIOS. It's a nice modern BIOS, so it has mouse support and a nice graphical interface. This is gonna make overclocking rather a breeze later on. You can see it's running at its specified 3.9 gigahertz. Let me try to get a little closer here. You might not be able to make that out because my camera's not that good, but 3.9 gigahertz. We've got the full 8 gigabytes of 1600 megahertz RAM installed. Everything is looking great. The CPU is reading 29 degrees Celsius. My house furnace is set to 70 degrees Celsius. I should probably turn that back down to 68, but we're in a cold snap here and I'm weak. Okay, 1.356 volts on the CPU. The motherboard is reading 21 degrees Celsius. Everything seems kosher there. Okay, so looks like Asus has provided some different kinds of power saving configurations. We're going to keep it on normal for now. Although actually we could switch it over to performance. Let's do that later on. Here it shows us our boot priority. Right now it wants to try booting from the hard drive first, then from the CD. I want to drag that above. The hard drive should generally come last in boot. And we could go to advanced mode. Ooh, yes, I want to go to advanced mode. Okay, we can go to the AI tweaker. We can start setting the CPU ratio. Okay, we can enable or disable core turbo technology. We can change memory frequencies. It's got a couple different options right there. Very nice. We can change the core, the North Bridge frequency in case we want to try overclocking that way. That kind of overclocks the whole system at a go. We've got a couple other options. We've got the OC tuner, which automatically overclocks the frequency and voltage of your CPU and your RAM. That's rather nice. I'm not going to use that at this time. I just want things to work the first time through, even though I'm fairly confident in ASUS to do a pretty good job with that. Wow, lots of things to go over here. Not enough time in the video for it. You can configure. Let's see. You can. Let's see. We want to. What is this? I don't know what HPC mode is. Perhaps someone can comment on that. Got more monitors. We're reading 32 degrees Celsius on the CPU here. It could be that I applied a little bit too much thermal paste. I'm not sure. That's still a pretty good temp for idle. I'd like to see if I can get that down a little bit more. I might try torquing the cooler down a little bit more. Okay, cool. Everything's nice. There are some tools, it seems. You can save OC profiles. You can flash your BIOS if for some reason you should need to do that. Obviously, we didn't need to do that here. It knows the FX 6350 without any kind of issue, so great. Okay, we can change the boot options. I actually am going to. Let's see. All USB devices will not be available until OS boot up for fastest post. Actually, we do want all of them to be available, so I'm going to change that to full initialization. Let's see. We're going to keep the network stack driver support disabled. We're gonna, for maximum post, we're gonna go to 1 second delay on the post delay time. We could go to 0, but that gets really annoying if you need to get into the BIOS, so we're going to set that to 1 second. We're going to, let's see, secure boot. I believe we need to have that ready to go for Windows 8, so we're not going to mess with that. If we were going to load Linux, we might have to disable that secure boot, or boot from the USB in general. We might have to disable that. Depends, from what I've heard. Okay, we are, in the interest of time, just going to go ahead and F10 to save and quit. Yep. All right. Now, we should see Windows 8 coming up here as the boot option, the disk. Sure enough, I do hear the drive spinning. Press any key. We're going to press any key. I pressed V. It's a good key. I'm going to come back to you when it's all ready to go. Okay, so almost as soon as I stopped the video, it came up. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and set this up. I'm not actually going to film this setup because I don't want to give away any information on the system. It's fairly self-explanatory, as all Windows installs are. So I will see you on the other side when we've got this sucker up and running. When we do, I will be putting the case together so that it looks nice and pretty. I will then be also installing the hard drive, and after that we should be good to go. I'll simply be configuring a few things in software and maybe playing a game to see how the system runs. After that, it gets shipped off to my hopefully very happy customer. Okay, so here we are, back for the final kickoff. We've got the full, completely assembled front and rear panels on tower. I've just got this ugly keyboard plugged into the top so that you can see that the top connectors are indeed assembled. We are connecting, you'll have trouble seeing this, but we are connecting in the back via Ethernet to power line. So we're going to turn this on, and we're just going to enjoy the nice fast Windows 8 plus SSD boot times. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 seconds. And that's with a 1 second delay so that you can get into BIOS if you need to. Cool, so let's continue. Alright, I'm going to enter the password here. Alright, here we are. Everything that's left to do at this point is to just install video drivers, install various software programs that the user might be interested in having, and basically getting the system configured and running. Looks quite nice with those two deep cool fans running on top with those blue LEDs. Kind of looks like some kind of crazy reactor. Just giving you a quick look over here on the side. Similar story. Oopsies. Yep, very nice looking. So thank you for watching my build, and if you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up. This is just kind of something I do for fun, and I hope my customer likes it a lot. Thanks, bye.